Hi everyone, this is Matt from Dynamic, and today I'm going to show you how to upgrade from V0.18 to V0.19 in just a couple of minutes. Let's start by going to the SDK reference, since this is mainly an SDK based upgrade. Here we have the upgrade guide section, and we have 3 simple steps. These steps are broken down below in more detail, so we'll go through them in a little bit. But let's get going. Over here I have an app which is running V0.18, and let's go through the main changes we need to make. First of all, SDK React is being deprecated in favor of SDK React Core. SDK React Core is much more lightweight. You can add and remove the wallet connectors that you need and the chains that you support. And we're going to be working on that moving forward. So what we'll do first of all is we will uninstall at Dynamic Labs SDK React. So rather than just installing Core over the top, we want to make sure that we remove this completely because it's not needed anymore. And after that, let's go for Dynamic Labs SDK React Core. Just like this. Super. What we're seeing at the moment is a dependency issue because we also have installed the WAGMI connector. You can see that over here. We're using the WAGMI connector. So what we want to do there is upgrade the WAGMI connector to the latest version. So what we could do is, let's say, since the core is on 19.1, we can also go for the same thing. And we'll say at 0.19.1. We do want to make sure that, in this case, let's run it with a force since we're upgrading. There we go. We do want to make sure that these 2 things are on the same version, where possible. The WAGMI connector and SDK React Core. Now, obviously, if you're not using WAGMI, you don't need to worry about this at all. But I'm just putting it here in case you are. So we can wait for that to finish. There we go. We're now at 19.1, all looking good there. Back in our app, all we need to do is to do this. Instead of SDK React, it's now SDK React Core. That's the first setting right there. So you know that in our provider, we add the environment ID right here. So let's just do that. This is an object, environment ID like this, and that's normally all we have. However, the second step here details that you should use wallet connectors. Now, wallet connectors were not used in SDK React, they are used in SDK React Core. This is because we don't bundle any support for wallets and chains with Core. It's to make it super lightweight because you probably don't need all these. You get to pick and choose. So let's say we want to support Ethereum, and by the way, this includes all the layer 2s and dynamic embedded wallets as well. So let's say Ethereum, and we want Starknet as well. The first thing we need to do is install those. You know what, let's use the example and let's install for flow. Just like this. We'll let that run for a minute and move on to the next section on how to use these connectors. And here we have an example. We must import them, whichever we've installed, so let's do that. And we must also use them in a wallet connectors node inside the settings. Prop. Like so. That is all you should have to do. Let's pop back and fill in our environment ID here. Good to go. The WAGMI connector remains the same. The widget remains the same, as does everything else. Super. Lastly, we need to discuss Veeam and ethers. Previously, we used ethers. Now we use Veeam as the underlying library. It's much more lightweight. It's very performant. We're big fans. Not to say ethers isn't also good. just whatever works for your use case. So if you want to use ethers, not a problem. You can do so. I'll show you how to do that down here. But if you're happy to use Veeam, you don't need to do anything anymore. Now, if you'll recall on SDK React, if you were using Veeam, you needed to install a version with the Veeam tag. You don't need to do that anymore. And you see that you're just installing SDK React Core, and by default, this will use Veeam. Perfect. Now, if you do want to use ethers, you install it right here and use the ethers extension. So let's do that too. Let's assume that we don't want to use Veeam, we want to use ethers, just in case. We'll install it, pop back over here, and use the wallet connector extensions node. So we'll pop that right here. And what we need to do is import this ethers extension. Now, if you want to use V6, it's not a problem. Just install from V6. You obviously need to install that version as well. Let's check on this. All done. Let's see how we're going, since we have technically fulfilled the 3 steps involved here. Let's take a look. We'll let this load up. And there we have it. Connect your wallet. Here we're using just email. That will all work well for you. Exactly the same. Once again, it's worth reading down here the differences. This flow assumes that you are using SDK React before upgrading. If you are using SDK React Core, there are a couple of other things for you to know. We have renamed some of the wallet connectors. So before we had something like Dynamic Labs Ethereum All. Now it's just Ethereum. So please refer to this table name and see if you need to update any of your connectors if you're already using SDK React Core. Well, that's really the only difference there for you to know. Wonderful. You've successfully upgraded. You've got Veeam by default or ethers if you need, a really lightweight performant version of the SDK, which ships with a whole bunch of things like embedded wallets and more, which I'll share in another video. Thank you.